The Bible is clearly opposed to divorce.
I'm not so sure about that.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Well, thank you very much. I, too, would like to welcome you to today's edition of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We're so very glad you've joined us for today's topic. Before we get started with our discussion, I'd like for you to meet our panelists. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
My name is Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I'm an Episcopal priest canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve as the senior minister at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
My name is Mel Robeck. I'm Senior Professor of Church History and Ecumenics at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, which is affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Hi, I'm the Senior Pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas. My name is Tony Matthews.
Once again, thank you for joining us for today's program. Looking forward to this discussion, and thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today for it. Let's get started, shall we? On January the 13th, you may remember, the panel on the American Religious Town Hall discussed marriage and mental health. That was as a result of a question a viewer asked me to consider. The thrust of the question was this: if a spouse, and in this case his wife, has Alzheimer's and she recognizes no one, including her husband, and she is living in a special care facility for Alzheimer's, the husband asked this question: is it biblically acceptable to divorce her and move on with his life? In their response, the panelists were basically supportive that marriage is a lifelong commitment in sickness and in health. As soon as we finished the program, one of the staff members of the studio where we were producing the program came up to our desk and challenged us by raising the question about getting a divorce because of medical bills that can easily bankrupt a family. In this case, Medicaid would be responsible for Alzheimer's spouse, although, as undesirable as it may be, divorce, when compared to alternatives, may, according to some, inflict the least amount of damage to the family. With this insight about the economic disaster of Alzheimer's, I would like the panel to consider at least these three questions today. First of all, is financial ruin for a family because of the spiraling costs for medical nursing care expenses a legitimate reason to get a divorce today? Second question, do any of our panelists have any firsthand experience when a family member, friend, or acquaintance has gotten a divorce for economic reason because of his cost on medical care for an Alzheimer's spouse and hence economic disaster for the family? And then finally, how should churches or synagogues, mosques respond to the Alzheimer's crisis when divorce is the only solution for families facing economic disaster? We're going to go back to those who helped to begin the program. For that, we go to Dr. Robeck. Welcome back to the program today, and you helped to start today's program.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. I've missed the last few months, and I'm sorry about that, but that's life. In any case, I stand very strongly on the idea that the Bible is really opposed to divorce. I mean, God was the one who invented marriage. He's the one who brings Adam and Eve together. He's the one who says the two become one flesh and so forth. I suppose the best passage of Scripture that speaks about divorce is the passage in Matthew 19, the first 10 verses, where the Pharisees come up to Jesus and say, is it lawful to get a divorce? And they're trying to test him. They're trying to figure out, where's he going to come down on this? Can we trick him into making a mistake here about the law and so forth? And he reminds them that when people get married, the two become one. And then they say, well, Moses, he allowed for divorce. What's wrong with that? And he says, you remember, Moses did so because of hardness of heart. It's not because of what marriage was for. It's not what was intended. And then he gives this kind of word that says, if there's sexual immorality on the part of one party, that's a violation of the marriage that could be used that way. But his clear understanding is marriage is something that we commit to forever. I like to think of it in terms of personal integrity. I like to think of it in terms of a covenant with God that we voluntarily enter into when we say that we will stay together, that we will love, that we will be faithful, that we will do it for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. I made that statement, and I think about this every once in a while, not because I'm ready to divorce my wife. I love my wife. We'll be married 50 years in June, and looking forward to that. But the fact is, she does suffer from chronic heart disease. And there are times when you look at these medical bills and you say, I don't like them, But marriage is not about economics. Marriage is about faithfulness and fidelity to the other that we have voluntarily taken a stand on, and it's about faithfulness and it's about integrity with God. Did we mean what we said, or do we not? Now, there are lots of reasons that people get divorced, and I'm not here to make all kinds of judgments about that. I'm just saying, when I read Scripture, Scripture tells me marriage is the way God intended it, and that's the way it should stay. I realize that in cases of mental health, not just mental health, but also physical health, there are places or times when people can go absolutely bankrupt or lose every bit of property. They lose everything in the process of trying to stay alive or keep one alive. And I suppose that in one sense, it is an economic issue that needs to be addressed. And in another sense, I wonder whether it isn't a fear of death. In the old days, we didn't have the kinds of abilities that we have to save people's lives, but they're very expensive. And we had families around that took care of the weakness that was there. Today, I know in California, for instance, we have laws which talk about spousal impoverishment, and there are ways to split assets so that the stronger person does not lose everything and the weaker patient gets the care that they need. Insurance companies understand that. The government understands that. Lawyers certainly understand it. And in California, we do have a situation where after insurance and Medicare, Medicaid will cover pretty much the rest.
All right, thank you, Dr. Robeck. Now, Ken Peterson, you started off decidedly different. Are there some exceptions to what you just heard? Tell us a little bit more about your opening statement.
Well, Mel certainly touched on, at the very end of his statement, exactly what I am going to be speaking about today. I wouldn't argue with his biblical interpretation. I would perhaps not be quite so casuistic in what he said, but
I'm not so sure.
That's okay. I'm much more of an apodictic person. But first off, I want to say that none of us on this panel are lawyers. And we certainly are not giving any legal opinion here today in relationship to this really very important subject. And I also want to thank our good friend here on the staff for coming up after our program and raising this issue for us, because I think that what he has raised is one that is extremely important for our viewing audience to be able to hear. And basically what he asked us was, what about Medicaid divorce? And Medicaid divorce is a way in which, as Mel has pointed out, can help resolve the problem of financial disaster within a family as a result of medical bills, Alzheimer's bills, and other really critical and very expensive medical expenses. I certainly agree with the moderator that divorce is unappetizing. I don't think anyone who's gone through a divorce for whatever reason would ever think that that was an appetizing thing to do. But I also want to say at this point here that one of the very alternatives that we must discuss is how can we lessen the damage to a family because of major illness. Now, what is Medicaid divorce? Medicaid divorce is basically a divorce on paper, so that a person in the marriage or one of the children can become eligible for Medicaid. In cases of sudden illness, a disability in the family, an accident, or simply old age, couples are turning to a Medicaid divorce as an option. One of the benefits of a Medicaid divorce is that you do not give up any love for your family. You can be with the person, and it's just basically a technicality in relationship that the government has. So Medicaid divorce is certainly, I think, an option that people should consider in disastrous times like this.
All right, thank you very much, and for starting our program off. Bishop Olson, welcome back to the program today, and your take on the subject, please.
Thank you very much. I think very much both in line with and following along with what was said by Mel and by John. I'd say there is, from a Catholic tradition point of view, is that consent makes the marriage. The consent between the man and the woman, consent to permanence, till death do you part, fidelity to each other, and openness to God's gift of children and family life. Divorce is a legal fiction which can be chosen, in a sense, for abandonment of one's responsibilities to one's spouse or family, or in the case as was articulated by John, for the good of the family, strangely enough, because to avoid bankruptcy. And that's primarily due because of our system that sees the individual as the primary unit of society, and we ration health care according to ability to pay. And so the option is either bankruptcy or death. And so until we look at some of the broader societal issues, moral issues regarding how we meet people's primary right and responsibility to health, this can be a continuing and growing pastoral problem.
All right, thank you very much. I understand some states are looking at that, and maybe we'll hear more about that. I think, Dr. Robeck, you'd mentioned that. But Tom, welcome to the program today. Reverend Plumley, your take on the subject.
Thank you. I think this is a marvelous conversation, and one that's very much needed, because we have had raised for us some very significant questions about this one place in our cultural life in which the church and the state are heavily entangled with each other, and that is this whole area of marriage. Becoming married, wedding each other, is a time in which church and state literally do it together. There are two parts of that. And I think we probably need to understand as church that we have something to say about divorce as well. I don't disagree with anything that Dr. Robeck had to say about Scripture and divorce. But as I said the first time we discussed this, I think that pastoral care and pastoral sensitivity trumps all those other things. I think of Jesus when he was being tested on the issue of breaking Sabbath laws. Responded that the Sabbath was made for human beings and not human beings for the Sabbath. I think we can begin to look at divorce in somewhat the same way, that marriage is made for spiritual health, and divorce could be as well. You asked, one of the questions that you asked is whether we had any experience with this. I've not had any experience with people wanting to be divorced because of the severe medical costs, but I have had experience with folks who wanted to be married in the eyes of the church because they thought that was necessary in order to live together, but they did not want to be married in the eyes of the state because it would bankrupt them, because their meager incomes were based on the fact that each of them was receiving something. If they got married, they would not receive the same sort of Social Security benefits. And this was an elderly couple that came to me some long time ago. Their own church wouldn't marry them. And I said, no, if this is going to create health for you all, if you all are going to feel better about your decision to love each other until death do you part, I will perform the marriage, and we'll just leave the state out of it. And we didn't have a license or anything like that. So I have a little bit of experience on a similar issue, but this is something that we need to talk about, and probably a lot further along than just this panel, but because of the entanglement of church and state.
Thank you. And Dr. Matthews, welcome to the program. What are your thoughts on this? Agree, disagree? Where are you?
You know what? I agree with most and disagree with a couple of items. But I think the key thing, what I heard from our colleagues, is that this is a pastoral care issue that we as pastors have to deal with. I think when I look at this, I think it really is a sensitive topic. And I really feel for individuals who are in this position. I've actually presented the question to some of our parishioners to see what they would do. And when I look at this, I have to break it down into the legal, the biblical, the ethical thing to do. Legally, I think something is just wrong with people, a spouse who can be bankrupt because of his or her spouse's illness. I think something's just morally, ethically wrong with that. And so whatever laws need to be changed, implemented, that needs to happen. And then I think this is also a situational ethics challenge. Of course, situational ethics is a system of ethics by which those situations are judged based on their context. And one has to ask, hey, does situational ethics trump the Bible? And the answer obviously is no. However, we do have the ideal and the real. In the church, we preach the ideal. Marriage is from God. Stay together. Nothing trumps marriage. Economics, finances, challenges. We need to stick with marriage. But in the real world, we're pastoring people and caring for people who actually go through this. So what do? For me, the economic challenge is not a reason to divorce. I want to be clear on that. But at the same time, we have to minister to people who go through those types of things.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Trovald, welcome to the program. Welcome back. It's been a while since you've been with us.
Nice to be back.
And we'd like to hear your thoughts on this subject, please.
Honestly, much has been said already that I would agree with. I think, as an ethicist, and I think about this would be a classic example in a classroom, even of teasing out what's going on. I mean, we have two fundamental goods that end up being in opposition to one another. It's a moral dilemma. Someone who wants to be committed to faithfulness to their spouse, and yet at the same time also is committed to the good of just being able to survive and live by having the resources to eat and have shelter over their head. And I would agree that because we have church and state completely entangled in the area of marriage such as this, it ends up making people have to, in certain states, they have to make a choice. And that's a tragedy that needs to be remedied. And I mean, this would, in my opinion, have to be remedied particularly in the political realm. As we try to, because we want to make sure that people can be faithful to their spouses and that they also don't go bankrupt. And I couldn't agree more that it ends up being a pastoral care issue that each pastor is going to have to deal with in their particular context.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, Dr. Robeck, you'd mentioned California and what they're doing. We just have a few seconds left. If you could recap and...
Yeah, the idea in California is that if you are a couple, that one is quite ill and the other one is well, that assets can be separated, and the state will allow that, and insurance companies understand that, and Medicare understands that, and so forth, and that a certain percentage of it will be used then to take care of the person as long as that's possible, but when that runs out, Medicaid will step in and cover the difference. So everybody is covered.
Reasonable solution. Thank you for that. Maybe those who are listening can write their congressmen, their representatives, find out a better solution for your state.
It's called the Spousal Impoverishment Program.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break just now. There's an important announcement I'd like for you to hear, so please stand by. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome back. I do look forward to hearing from you. You're seeing a good example today of what happens or what can happen if you write to this program. So do take a few moments, send us a card or a letter if you have a suggestion for a program, or maybe some comments about programs that you have watched from week to week. Whatever the case, we're glad that you're with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Let's go to our summary statements now, and for that, let's begin with Bishop Olson. You're first.
Thank you. The moral and pastoral dilemma presented to us today in this case and these considerations underscores, I think, the fact that naturally speaking, marriage is a public institution that involves more than one person, that involves, first of all, the spouses, and then also family life, and then the common good of society. And so the care that marriage involves is to foster that unity, particularly during times of sickness, times of duress, and our public laws need to take that into consideration.
Thank you very much. Reverend Plumley, your summation, please.
Thank you. I think one of the helpful things that's come out of this conversation is a resolution that I think we could all sign our names to, that laws need to change, and legislators need to be considering some of these things more actively than they are. I do think that situational ethics are not always counter to the spirit of our Scripture. I think you know, the guys that were stoning the woman at the edge of town were strictly following their Bible when Jesus stepped in and asked them if any of them were sinless, and there, you know, Scripture made no room for that. Anyone could and should stone an adulterous woman. I'm just saying that there is room for flexibility and conversation around pastoral needs.
Thank you very much. Dr. Trovall, your summation, please.
Exceptions make bad law, and this is one of these classic exceptional cases that the law should accommodate for these kinds of exceptions at the same time by maintaining the sanctity of marriage and people's desire to be in a covenantal relationship, but one that would not bankrupt them as they are faithful in that covenantal relationship.
And thank you. Dr. Matthews, your summation, please.
Yes, a potential economic disaster should not overrule the extreme stance of Scripture in this vein of divorce and marriage. But I will quickly say that in reality, when people do divorce because of this, the church should be there to step in with grace and mercy and to love them and to just administer care to them.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Robeck. You helped to start the program. Your summation now, please.
Yes. Our culture does, in fact, suggest that the individual is what is important and not the family, I think. And I think the church has a duty in helping the church and people and society to understand that the family is extremely important. And the breakdown of that family in any way is bad for the state. It's also the case, I think, that the state has limited resources. And while it may be a political or a financial situation that the state could step into to provide additional medical care for everybody, and I wish it would and wish it could, we have limited resources, and I don't know where that's going to end.
All right, thank you. Canon Peterson, you also helped to start the program. Your summation now,
Yes,
please.
I would want to argue that a Medicaid divorce does not mean that it is an end to your relationship. Instead, I would argue that a Medicaid divorce frequently saves many marriages and may allow the marriage union to be even better. I am in full agreement that one of the things that needs to be done soon is that our government rewrites laws about the Medicaid program so that these legal gymnastics do not have to continue to happen.
All right, thank you very much. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's program. Well, agree or disagree, we're glad that you tuned in today. And if you have any comments about today's program, as we mentioned a few moments earlier, please write us. You can go to the website, you can email us, you can send us a letter, drop us a postcard. We're very happy to hear from you. And by the way, for those of you who are longtime viewers of this program, thank you so much for your loyalty. We know how much this program means to you. It certainly means a lot to us here around this table. But it's really encouraging to know that there are viewers like you who tune in from week to week to watch the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We appreciate your viewership. But for now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, friends, until next time, and at the same time, and over this very same channel, or if you're watching us via your computer or whatever device you're viewing us on today, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.